Are you rethinking your purpose in life? Being centered in a strong spiritual connection is more important now than ever. Hi, I'm Bryn Blankinship, hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. Each episode, along with Dr. Pat, I'll share my experiences with guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and the soul lessons gained, prompting you to explore your own soul's journey and empowering you by shifting your perception of yourself and your place in this world. I want you to know that you're here by design, not by accident. You are not alone. You are loved. You are here on purpose, for a purpose. When you stand in your truth and fulfill your purpose, you support others in fulfilling theirs. If this intrigues you, stay tuned in as we explore.
Oh my goodness, we have got a great show and we're going to get started right now. You ready? Death, rebirth, and the afterlife. For those of you out there, have you ever wondered, and I'm sure you have, if you're anything like either one of us, either Bryn or I, what's up with the soul? Where do you go? Are you always here? What happens when our loved ones pass? Today, we're going to take it in all of it. Let's talk about this from the top, because I think these are questions that even if people don't say them out loud, Bryn, I bet they think them. What do you think?
People come to me all the time and say, there's no one else I can talk to about this, right? Because when they ask questions about it, they get laughed at because people don't know the answer. So they try to make the person asking the question feel uncomfortable, right? So the soul does not die, okay? Death is not final, and we will see our loved ones again. That I know for sure. And with spiritual regression, what we're doing, we're bending time to go back outside of Earth time. Okay, so Earth has its own time system attached to it. We're going beyond that to where all time exists at once, to where souls go when they leave the Earth plane, planet, dimension, whatever you want to refer to it as. This is where souls go back to, and it's not final. The soul is eternal, and there's that disconnect that happens with the human experience. So when that soul is going back to the main part of the soul to reconnect, there's a disconnect from the human part. And let me just say, your soul, your highest self, your immortal self, is outside of Earth time, and a part of it comes down into this body, right? When we incarnate. This is how we can have sessions, and in session work, someone who's living or deceased can show up in the session. And if they're deceased, they can show up, or if they're in your current life and they're still alive, they can also show up in session simultaneously.
Yeah, I love the way you describe that, because now I understand it more like a pie, right? And
Yes.
so one slice of the pie is me in this human skin. And my soul will tap down into that slice for the time that I'm here, and we'll have that connection. But that doesn't mean that's all the entire soul. You know, there's much more to it. And yet this is where I think we get confused. I think we get confused that this is my soul, there ain't no more. And that's not what you described. And the way you described it is great. It's like it does a little touchdown in my human skin.
Yes.
For a short period of time, by the way.
So when a soul dies, when they go through the death process as a human, the human body dies, the soul goes back, it's greeted by loved ones, there's a place of healing and rejuvenation from the life they've just lived. There's a life review. They may meet with other members of their soul group. They may meet with guides and soul advisory council. They might even start planning out their next life. So think of it like your body, your human body is your spacesuit while you're here on Earth, right? And you have this internal radio frequency that connects to the command center there off planet, right? So that frequency is how your guides are able to communicate with you, how your soul communicates with you through it. That's how you're born knowing your life's purpose. But we go through this process where we block it. We don't know all the pieces of it. We're reintroduced to it incrementally as we get through different stages in our life. And so sometimes this spacesuit that we're in, we have to call in management You know, the Soul Advisory Council is like when you have to go to upper management and they have to remind you of your mission and they have to update you on your orders. And then sometimes you use free will and you're going into uncharted territory. So it takes a minute for everything to line back up again, right? Then when your mission is over, you return home to your home planet. You're welcomed by loved ones. You're celebrated for a difficult job. Then you turn around and do it all over again. Just like what happened with the astronauts, right?
So when we're thinking about this is the most fascinating thing for me, is I love thinking about it like the astronaut, like space travel for a minute, because we all have seen space travel as something abstract until we didn't anymore, right? Now,
Right.
like you can buy your own ticket to go up there. But if we think about it in terms of energy and life force, then space is this infinite, unattainably measurable thing. And so
Yes.
why can't we see the soul as that?
And it is like space travel because sometimes my clients go to other planets. You're right. And so
But I
you're
haven't
wearing this
experienced with
spacesuit
that.
here. That's why I say we are the aliens because we don't look like this in our soul body,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? On those
You know,
other
it's
planets.
it's fascinating to me because the regression that I did, and honestly, it's the memories of it are so real. And yet when I look back at it, is I was clearly looking down. Now that's the best way I can describe it. I am not going to come up with any fancy terms because I don't have them. I just know looking down, giving guidance, looking at decisions, right? To
Yes.
people. And that was so helpful for me because there's so much more. But
Well, that's why
yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's why I say that up, right? When I
Yeah,
refer to the soul, even
yes,
though it's really internal, because
yes.
clients do kind of describe looking down, although some
Mm,
clients are like in at the same level
mm,
of height and are able to look out through the experience. And some kind of are a little more detached from it and looking at it from a higher place. But,
mm,
it's just how you process information. And as a client, Dr.
mhm.
Pat is like very fluid. Like she just goes, she closes her eyes, she's out there. So,
And out there in a way that I was trying to explain this to Linda the other day, because we're going to sit down and we're going to go through the whole process. But I said to her, honestly, how in the world? I mean, I said, I remember, I think I thought it wasn't happening. So this is what I thought. You got it? And then I'm pointing to a captain on a ship. Hello. But, part of this is understanding too what the importance is, especially when we're talking about the Soul Advisory Council. And I would love for you to touch upon that, because I think sometimes in life we think we're so alone. We can't accomplish anything. There's no real solution for some of the life path we have. And I'm learning that is not true for
right.
me.
So we've talked about this a little bit in
Mhm.
previous episodes. Your guides are kind of helping with the day-to-day details to keep you on track, like your manager. But they don't tell
Mhm.
us what to do. They help guide us. We have choice to follow
Mhm.
that guidance or not, right?
Mhm.
But they want to help us and they're here to support us, but we have to ask for that help.
Yeah.
And then the Soul Advisory Council, they are like a higher level of awareness, these beings that come in and remind us of the bigger
Mhm.
picture.
Yeah.
This
Bryn,
is
I
why
got
you're
it.
here. This is what you
Mhm.
came to do. Even talking about death and the exits, you know, um, there's not one way to die. We have
Yeah.
possible exit points. And
Yeah.
so they may come in and show you and also show you how you got very, very sick earlier in current life and you had the possibility to take an exit, but you didn't take it,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
stuck with it. Because if you leave, then the mission is done and there's no judgment, but there are consequences for those actions because
Yeah.
you didn't complete the lesson. If you leave early, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there's an impact on others.
Let's
And
talk
what
about death for a minute, because Nobody wants to really talk about death because we think it's so finite. There's like this, how would you explain it? It's like there's this polarization, but something happened the other day on my show with Mark. My godchild called in, my sister's child. She's the only one, right? My sister has passed. And she called in, and then I called her later, and something happened to me. I just started to cry horrifically for the rest of the night. It was, I mean, it was uncontrollably about my sister's passing, my mom's passing. You know, it was just all bundled up together because something must have opened up. And when she called into the show, and then I talked to Frances later, we talked about our relatives, and I just couldn't shut the door. So can you talk about that? I mean, I don't know if I opened a door with the regression. I don't know what happened, but very clearly to me, I want us to talk about this limitless soul. And yes, we grieve, but it's a bigger conversation than that, I think now.
Yes. So, okay, well, you're more open, so you were aware of the communications and you could feel it through the heart. And so, you know, when we're talking about exit points and opening doors, you know, let me just say one last thing about that.
Sure.
The soul, because I know this through session work, when we're in the spirit realm, the soul feels regret for the pain that they caused to others. Okay. So if we're talking about you know, the soul choosing to leave before they completed a lesson, or a soul leaving when they've completed their lesson, but they know that their loved ones are not wanting them to go. So if someone leaves from natural causes, there's an individual lesson of them leaving the loved ones behind, and they'll experience grief and letting go. You could also have a lifetime where they didn't have any loved ones to leave behind. So a soul will experience from that what it's like to not have someone to say goodbye to. And then there's a group lesson for all the people in the soul group. So if someone dies of natural causes or an illness, you know, there's a soul group lesson in that. And if it's an illness, often there are others that have come in, and part of their lesson is to find a way to eradicate that illness or manage the illness, you know, so they may come in on the medical side of it. But then you have your loved ones, and sometimes illnesses are genetic, passed down through the body, and so those loved ones are dealing with a lot as well. Then natural causes, you know, if someone's lived the life and they're done, no matter what their age, when they're supposed to leave, they go. Okay. But we can leave a little bit early if it gets to be too much. It's just that we have to come back and do it all over again because we didn't complete the lesson. And then everyone that's left is scrambling. And so when your loved one leaves, that heart connection that you have with your sister, that is what you're feeling, because her human self and her soul, her human self has dropped its body. Her soul has gone back to the spirit realm. They can still communicate with you, but you are going to connect in a different way, because that piece that we talked about that's down here is really back over there now, and they will come back and forth and communicate. So I haven't really talked about this publicly, but my husband died 2 years ago. And had I not been doing the work that I'm doing, I don't know how I would have made it through. Okay. And let me just say, he had health issues. That man, what he was able to do with mind over matter, and how he was able to overcome deadlines that were set and challenges set for him. I mean, I don't even know. But what I do know is my heart, right? My head, okay, I can intellectualize this, but my heart had to go through that healing process. And so there was a disconnect of, you know, of feeling him leave, but there was also a feeling of every time he would come back to comfort me, which was a lot, you know, I'm crying because I'm feeling him. And he's like, no, I'm here, I'm good. And I'm like, oh, I can feel you. And then I would just, those are the tears healing the heart
Yeah.
because of the love, because the love transcends. But then you get to the place where you clear that grief from your body and you can celebrate them, right? I mean, I wanted him to be free of pain. I wanted him to be, I mean, he's home, he's in a good place. I just wish he could be here, but not like that. That's not fair for me to try to make him stay the way he was, right? So I had to work through all of that, but it was happening in stages, I mean, I gave his eulogy and I could feel him sitting right there with me. And I'm giving a celebration of life,
Mm.
but I'm crying through it.
Yeah.
But if we
Yeah.
could just get to that place, where we celebrate people, some cultures do this, where we celebrate the ancestors and the loved ones for getting to return home, then, we would have a bigger picture
Mhm.
of how this works.
I want to talk about what you just said, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks.
I'm reconnecting with my godchild, but I realized how little she knew about any of it. There
Hmm.
was nobody that communicated with her about what my sister went through and why my sister, her mom, was guilty all her life, felt guilty all her life. And as I was describing this, and this is where I want you to help us understand how regression does help with this grief, because I do believe that there was something that I connected with in my past. Even my mom, when I started to tell Frances about the details, she knew nothing about the birth of our grandfather in Brazil, my sister's death, my stepmom's death, all of that. My mom, her grandma's death, she knew nothing about it. And as I was describing it, it was as if I wasn't speaking. There were words that were given to me to tell her. This was important to tell her things. And I think that's what went on. But I don't know if I'd have had the wherewithal to do that. I almost think I might have been very clinical about it, like giving her a data report. But that's not what it was at all. And so how does grief, how does regression help people, the entire process, understanding the soul, number one, and then really looking at grief in the way that you see it from a soul perspective?
Well, grief is that pain that your heart is trying to heal from the change in the frequency because your loved one is now in that different dimension and your heart feels it. So you're learning to work through that pain in a session because we can do energetic work to lift that off the client, but also because the loved one shows up again and is there helping. And then not only the loved one, but other family members can come back and help as well. And then we have guides and, we have help available to us on a higher level to help heal from the pain. So it's understandable that we feel pain, right? Like I can talk about this now and not get all weepy, but it took a lot of work on my side of just putting myself in the client chair, working through things. But, when we feel that pain, feel it, let it move through you, and then release it. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't try to hold back tears. If you feel pain and you love your loved one, let the tears flow because that's your body releasing. That's one of your release mechanisms. So use that because that's what it's for, right? So with Cesar, um, you know, it's lifting those layers of grief. Being in that energy itself, just being in the energy of the afterlife is uplifting. It's revealing to us that death is not final. You have that soul recognition of deceased loved ones, and then knowing that they're okay. They're telling you they're okay. I had so many clients prior to this that helped me prepare. Clients that were losing their partner, their long-term partner. I mean, this was my soulmate. This was my best friend.
Yeah.
He was my biggest supporter, but he's still helping me from the other side without all that pain, right? So we have the loved ones. They're saying they're okay. They will use love. They will use humor. Oh my gosh, he is so sarcastic coming to me from the other side, right? But that's how I know it's him. He also will speak through music or phrases that only he would say. So in session, these things are happening, and the client is getting that telepathic communication from these loved ones that's helping to just open a channel. And as that happens, the body is just dropping away all the pain. It happens in layers. A lot can happen in a session, and sometimes it's setting you up for after the session to continue releasing. And then sometimes you release with laughter. Oh my gosh, they are so humorous. Sometimes, you're just laughing the pain away to where you forgot, the moments just a few minutes before that you were in pain. There's also the opportunity for a deeper understanding of your karmic relationship together. Oh my gosh, like he's so powerful of a soul, which I knew, but he's even more powerful than I recognized.
Right.
And he would just say things when he was here, like, you're going to find out when I go that I know more about this stuff than you do. And he might be right, like some of the things he shares. And then it's also a chance for forgiveness work, right? You can have forgiveness work with living or deceased loved ones, so you're not carrying the burden of whatever it was that created, the disconnect, the rift between you. But we have to forgive the self. Often the self is overlooked. It's the most important piece. So, you have to forgive yourself because you didn't know what you know now. You did the best you could with the information that you had, but you have more information, right? We lived life in a way that was different than I would have had I not known he was ill. This is a genetic illness that's run through his family. He lasted a lot longer than I expected him
Yeah.
to. And he was very independent and boy, he was strong and independent. So I used the information I had to live every moment that we could do what we could. And then as I knew more, that changed, and we worked with that. And I don't regret any of those
Yeah.
things, right? Because
Yeah.
that kept him alive and kept him going.
Yeah.
So,
What a blessing though, too, right?
yes.
What
I
a
have all those
blessing.
memories, right? Because you might say, oh, I'm not going to do that because he probably shouldn't do it, or we don't have the money to do that. Go do that thing, find a way to do it. And if he couldn't do something, he would tell me, but he's very strong and independent and a little bit stubborn. So we would get out and do things. Even if he was in pain, he'd say, I'm in pain anyway. Let's just go do that because I don't want to sit at home. Right. So
Yeah.
we're talking about different things. In my book, The Limitless Soul, there's also a story about the monk. And so this is a story that everybody who reads that, could read a story and relate to from my client session. There was a person who, in the past life, he became a monk because he lost his brother in an accident, and he was very upset. He was mad. The accident could have been prevented. Then his mother and his father both died of grief. The plague came through. The mother had no energy left. She was depleted from the loss of her son. Then the father died, and this young boy, teenager, he was left with no family. So he joined the local monastery, and he was mad at God. He would sit under this tree, which he referred to as this thinking tree, and he would sit there in solitude, feeling the energy of his family and trying to find peace. And over the course of his life, he did do that. And his past life challenge was to have the challenge of anger and to overcome that. So these people lived and were meant to die at the time they did, because their death caused him to overcome this challenge. So in his current life, he owns a chain of pubs. They're a gathering place for spirituality, for people that don't want to go to an organized religion, don't want to go to church. They'll sit around and discuss spirituality. And he's had glimpses of his past lives while he was creating and developing his pubs. and they're actually named after a monk. But he didn't know in each of the recipes, each of his beer recipes are named after monkly things. And he didn't know this until we were in session and they explained to him why he named it what he did. So, but in that he worked through a lot of grief and a lot of layers. And in current life, he's able to discuss death. He's able to discuss things that, he was a little more restricted in that lifetime as the monk as well, because of religious doctrine and what he was allowed to say and what he could, what he was not allowed to say.
Look, I am very aware now of the unique timing of things. Had I not done the regression and grieved during that regression, now my godchild I haven't spoken to in years, she calls into the show last week. Then I have a conversation. I don't think I would have been able to have that conversation with her had I not done that with you. And that's what I want to say to people. But before we go, I want folks to know how they can find out what you're doing. I would love for them to know how they can learn how to do this. What have you got for us to really write down and make sure we take note of?
Well, you can go to brynblankinship.com, and that's my website. You can get a copy of my book, The Limitless Soul, and you can read stories of my client sessions, and there are exercises at the end to help you work through and start uncovering some things, and maybe it's in preparation for a future session. Maybe it's in preparation for doing this work and taking my training. So the training and the session work, that's on the website. And if you sign up for my newsletter through the website, there's a clinical hypnosis little mini de-stress session that you can sign up and have a link to. And it's just a 15-minute quick thing. And there will be some other recordings coming later, but that's not really spiritual regression, but you got to start by clearing the current chatter, clear the mind chatter.
I get it. Bryn, thank you so much for today. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to talk to you directly and fill you in on all this. But what I want to say to everybody out there, I entered this world, especially this venue, very skeptical 22 years ago. And along the way, I've become more and more aware. In the 22 years I've been aware, this is the first time I've been open to sit down and experience what Bryn is sharing. I wasn't ready. The time is now. And I think the pandemic has done that to a lot of us. It's really had us ask ourselves, what are we waiting for? Bryn, thank you so much for everything. Stefan, thank you so much. And to all of you out there, you have the ability to take action on your own behalf. Please, this solar return has given us a fresh start. Please step out and take it. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Afterlife Teacher, Soul Lessons bringing you full circle with Bryn Blankinship and Dr. Pat. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio for more discussions of the soul's journey across different lifetimes and soul lessons gained, helping you to consider the deeper reason you are here. Bryn shares her wisdom spanning 20 years of guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and connecting them with their spiritual team and soul's purpose to bring them full circle, helping you gain insight into your own soul's purpose while supporting others in fulfilling theirs. Living in partnership with your soul, with less worry and greater trust, you can be in divine flow and thrive. For more information on becoming a certified hypnotherapist and regressionist and assisting with the global transformation taking place, visit brynblankinship.com.